Carnival Ocean Breeze was not just a ship. It was a floating city made of sparkling glass and white steel. To 6-year-old Lucia Alvarez, it looked like a giant, magical birthday cake drifting on a sea of melted blue sapphire. "Look, Mommy, look!" Lucia squealed, her tiny finger pointing toward the sky. High above the deck, a massive water slide twisted like a neon green snake. "Can we go on it? Can we go right now?" Maria Alvarez laughed, tucked a stray strand of dark hair behind her daughter's ear, and squeezed her hand. "Soon, mi amor. First, we have to find our room and unpack our suitcases. The ship hasn't even left the dock yet." The air smelled of salt and sweet tropical pineapple juice. Everywhere they looked, people were smiling. Music played from hidden speakers, happy, thumping songs that made Lucia dance in her little yellow sandals. Maria looked at her husband, Daniel, who was carrying their heavy bags. He looked handsome in his sunglasses, but he wasn't smiling as much as the other dads. He seemed to be looking over his shoulder, checking his watch every few minutes. "Are you okay, Daniel?" Maria asked, stepping over a thick rope on the wooden deck. "Just crowded, Maria," he said, his voice flat. "I'll feel better when we're settled." Their cabin was small but cozy, with a porthole window that looked out at the sparkling harbor of Miami. Lucia immediately jumped on the bed, her curls bouncing. "I'm a sea princess," she shouted. "You are a very energetic sea princess," Maria said, opening a suitcase. "Daniel, could you help me with these dresses?" Daniel stood by the door, his hand resting on the handle. "Actually, why don't I take Lucia up to the kids' zone now? You can have some peace and quiet to unpack. It'll be faster if I take her while you organize the room." Maria hesitated. She loved Lucia's energy, but she also loved the idea of 20 minutes of quiet. "Are you sure we were going to go together?" "I'm sure," Daniel said. He reached out and grabbed Lucia's hand. His grip looked a little tight, but he was smiling now, a strange, quick smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Come on, Lulu. Let's go find the toys." Lucia didn't need to be asked twice. "Bye, Mammy. See you in 1,000 years." "In 1 hour," Maria called out. "Bring her back in exactly 1 hour, Daniel." The door clicked shut. Silence filled the room. Maria breathed in the quiet air, but for some reason her heart gave a tiny, nervous thump. She looked out the porthole. The ship was moving. The land was getting smaller and smaller, disappearing into a line of white foam. 1 hour passed. Maria had hung up all the clothes. She had lined up their shoes. She had even laid out Lucia's favorite pajamas, the ones with the little glowing stars. She checked her watch. 3 p.m. Daniel and Lucia should have been back. "Maybe the slide was really long," Maria whispered to the empty room. She waited another 15 minutes, then 20. By 3:30 p.m., the quiet of the room didn't feel peaceful anymore. It felt heavy. It felt like something was pressing against her chest, making it hard to breathe. She grabbed her key card and ran out the door. The hallways of the ship were a maze. Everything looked the same: blue carpet with gold stars, white doors, and brass handles. She ran past a group of teenagers laughing, and a waiter carrying a tray of tall glasses. "Excuse me, the kids' zone?" she asked a crew member. "Deck 12, ma'am. Just take the glass elevator." When the elevator doors opened on Deck 12, the noise was overwhelming. Children were screaming with joy, splashing in the pool and playing tag. Maria scanned the crowd for a bright yellow dress. She looked for Daniel's tall frame. She walked up to the counter of the Camp Ocean play area. A young woman with a bright blue polo shirt and a clipboard smiled at her. "Hi, can I help you?" "I'm looking for my daughter, Lucia Alvarez, and my husband, Daniel. He brought her here about an hour and a half ago." The girl scanned her list. Alvarez. "Oh yes, Lucia was checked in at 2:10 p.m. Maria felt a wave of relief. "Oh, thank goodness. Is she still inside?" The girl's smile faltered. She looked at the clipboard again, then at the computer screen. "Wait, it says here she was checked out at 2:45 p.m. Maria's blood went cold. "Checked out? By who?" "By her father, ma'am. The notes say parent pickup." Maria backed away from the counter, her head spinning. Why would Daniel pick her up and not come back to the room? Where would they go? She searched the souvenir shop. She searched the ice cream parlor. She even went to the arcade where the loud beeps and boops made her head throb. No Daniel, no Lucia. She ran back to their cabin, praying she had simply missed them in the hallway. She burst through the door. Daniel? Lucia? The room was exactly as she had left it. The star pajamas were still sitting on the bed. The yellow sandals were not by the door. The room was cold, and that was when the first scream tore its way out of Maria's throat. "A child is missing! A child is missing!" The words echoed over the ship's loudspeakers, turning the dream vacation into a living nightmare. The Carnival ocean breeze, which had been full of music and dancing, suddenly became a fortress. Security guards in white uniforms marched through the decks. They checked under beds, inside giant laundry bins, and even in the massive walk-in freezers in the kitchen. Maria stood in the middle of the atrium, her hands shaking so hard she had to clench them into fists. Daniel was there now. He had appeared 10 minutes after Maria called security, breathless and sweating. "I lost her, Maria," he cried, grabbing her shoulders. "We were walking toward the shop, and I turned my head for 1 second to look at a watch in the window. When I looked back, she was gone." "You said she was at the kids' zone," Maria sobbed. "I took her out. She wanted ice cream," Daniel shouted, his voice cracking. He looked terrified, but as Maria looked into his eyes, she saw something that confused her. His eyes were moving too fast, like he was looking for an exit, not for a daughter. The captain, a stern man named Miller, walked toward them. "Mr. and Mrs. Alvarez, we have reviewed the security footage." Maria gripped the captain's sleeve. "Did you see her? Is she okay?" The captain sighed, and in that sigh, Maria felt the world end. "We tracked you and the girl to the hallway leading to the lifeboats on deck 4. But there is a blind spot. One of our cameras blew a fuse an hour ago. We see you enter the hallway with the child. We see you exit the hallway alone 3 minutes later." "I told you," Daniel wailed. "She ran ahead of me. I thought she went to the stairs." "The railing in that hallway is low," the captain said softly, "and the wind was very strong this afternoon. We have alerted the Coast Guard. They are searching the water behind the ship." The water. Maria looked out the window at the dark, churning Atlantic Ocean. It looked like a giant mouth, ready to swallow everything she loved. She imagined Lucia's yellow dress floating in that cold, black nothingness. "No," Maria whispered. "She didn't fall. She's too smart. She's too careful." Daniel held her, whispering that it would be okay, but his arms felt like lead. He wasn't shaking. Maria was vibrating with grief, but Daniel was as steady as a rock. He didn't ask to see the broken camera. He didn't ask to talk to the person who saw them last. He just sat there staring at the floor, waiting for the clock to tick. The search lasted for 3 days. The Coast Guard sent planes that circled the ship like giant white birds. Divers jumped into the water. Every passenger on the ship was interviewed, but Lucia Alvarez was gone. It was as if she had turned into sea foam and drifted away. When the ship finally returned to Miami, Maria had to walk down the ramp without her daughter. She saw other families holding their children close, and the sight felt like a knife in her heart. The police in Miami were kind, but they didn't have any answers. "Sometimes the ocean doesn't give back what it takes," one detective told her. Back at their house, where the silence was even louder than it had been on the ship, Lucia's room remained exactly the same. Her half-finished coloring book was still on the small wooden table. Her favorite stuffed rabbit, Barnaby, sat on the pillow, waiting for a hug that would never come. Maria stopped eating. She stopped sleeping. She spent every night sitting on the floor of Lucia's room, holding Barnaby and staring at the door. Daniel, however, was different. 2 weeks after they got home, he started packing away Lucia's toys. "What are you doing?" Maria asked, her voice raspy from crying. "It's too painful to look at, Maria," Daniel said, not looking at her. "We have to move on. The police said she's gone." "She's not gone. I don't feel it. A mother would know if her child's light went out in the world." "Lucia is still out there." Daniel slammed a box shut. "Stop it. You're acting crazy. She fell, Maria. Accept it." Within a month, Daniel started staying out late. Then he started taking business trips. He stopped saying Lucia's name. He looked at Maria not with love, but with a strange kind of pity. Or maybe it was guilt. Then came the morning that changed everything again. Maria woke up and reached across the bed. The sheets were cold. She walked into the kitchen. The coffee pot was empty. She went to the closet. Daniel's suits were gone. His shoes were gone. Even his toothbrush was missing. On the kitchen counter sat a small, yellow sticky note. I can't do this anymore. The grief is too much. I need to start over where nobody knows my name. Don't look for me. Daniel, he had left her. In the middle of her darkest forest, he had taken the only flashlight she had and walked away. Maria sat on the kitchen floor and realized she wasn't just a mother who lost a child. She was a woman who had been left with nothing but a giant, gaping hole in her life. 12 years. That is 4,380 days. For 12 years, Maria Alvarez lived like a ghost. She moved to a small apartment. She worked as a nurse during the day and spent her nights on the internet. She became an expert on missing persons. She knew the names of every girl who went missing in Florida, Georgia, and even as far as Mexico. She never changed her phone number. What if Lucia remembers it, she thought. She never moved out of the city. What if she comes looking for me? People told her she was stuck. Her sister Elena tried to get her to go on dates, to go to the movies, to live a normal life. Maria, it's been a decade, Elena said softly over coffee. You're still wearing your wedding ring. Daniel is gone. Lucia she's in heaven. You have to breathe again. I am breathing, Maria said, her eyes fixed on a flyer for a missing child on the coffee shop's bulletin board. But I'm only breathing so I can find her. I'm telling you, Elena, my heart hasn't stopped hurting. If she were dead, the pain would be different. This pain is like a thread that's being pulled. She's on the other end of it. In 2023, technology had changed. People were using DNA websites to find long-lost cousins and build family trees. Elena convinced Maria to try one. Maybe you'll find a nice aunt in Spain, Elena joked. Something to take your mind off things. Maria did it. She sent in her DNA sample. But she also used the website's search tool to look for a name she hadn't spoken in years. Daniel Alvarez. She didn't expect to find anything. Daniel was smart. He had probably changed his name to Smith or Jones. He had disappeared without a trace, taking all their savings with him. But one rainy Tuesday night, as the clock on the wall ticked toward midnight, Maria typed the name into a global search. Results, 4,102. She began to filter by age, then by birthplace. She spent hours clicking through blurry photos of men who looked nothing like her husband. And then she saw him. It was a public profile for a man named Daniel A. in Sydney, Australia. The photo was small, but when Maria clicked on it, the world seemed to stop spinning. It was him. He was older. His hair was gray at the temples, and he had gained weight around his middle. He was wearing a wide-brimmed hat and standing in front of a bright blue harbor, Sydney Opera House in the background. But it wasn't just Daniel that made Maria's heart stop. Standing next to him was a young woman. She had dark, cascading curls. She had a very specific dimple on her left cheek when she smiled, and she was holding a toddler in her arms. The caption under the photo read, "Family Day at the Harbor with Sophia and the grandkids. Life is good." Maria's phone fell from her hand, cracking the screen. She didn't feel the glass. She didn't feel the cold air from the open window. "Sophia," she whispered. "That's not Sophia. That's Lucia." Maria didn't sleep that night. She spent the entire time staring at the photo until her eyes burned. She zoomed in until the pixels were blurry. The woman in the photo, Sophia, was 18 or 19 years old. She looked exactly like Maria had at that age. She had the same nose, the same way of tilting her head. But there was something else. In the photo, Daniel had his arm around Sophia. He looked proud. He looked like a father. He stole her, Maria realized, and the thought was so heavy it almost crushed her. He didn't lose her. He took her. Suddenly, the pieces of the puzzle from 12 years ago began to shift and click into place. The broken camera, Daniel's calmness, the way he insisted she had fallen overboard, the note saying he needed to start over. He hadn't started over alone. He had taken their daughter and moved to the other side of the planet to build a life with a different name. The next morning, Maria didn't go to work. She went to the FBI office in downtown Miami. She carried her laptop, her old cruise records, and every photo she had of Lucia as a child. The officer at the desk, a man named Agent Vance, looked skeptical at first. Ma'am, we get a lot of people who think they've seen missing relatives on social media. Usually it's just a coincidence. Look at the dimple, Maria said, her voice shaking but strong. Look at the husband. That is Daniel Alvarez. He disappeared 12 years ago after our daughter drowned on a cruise ship. Now he's in Australia with a daughter who looks exactly like me. Agent Vance looked at the screen. He looked at the old missing person poster. He looked at Maria. He began to type. Okay, Mrs. Alvarez, let me run a check on this Daniel and Sydney. 2 hours later, Vance came back out. His face was pale. Mrs. Alvarez, come with me. They went into a small glass room. Vance sat down. We checked the Australian immigration records. A man named Daniel Aris arrived in Sydney in late 2011 with a 6-year-old daughter named Sophia. He claimed her mother had passed away in a car accident in South America. He had all the paperwork, birth certificates, passports, death certificates. They were fake, Maria said. They were very good fakes, Vance replied. But here's the kicker. We checked the DNA database. You know that genealogy site you joined? Your DNA is a partial match to a young woman who joined the same site 6 months ago in Australia. She was looking for her mother's side of the family. Maria let out a sob that sounded like a bird's cry. Lucia was looking for me? She was looking for a Maria Morales, the name Daniel gave her for her mother. She didn't find a Morales. She found an Alvarez. The flight from Miami to Sydney is 15 hours long. For Maria, it felt like 15 years. She sat in the cramped airplane seat, staring at the small screen showing the plane moving slowly across a giant blue map. She was traveling with Agent Vance and a female officer from the Australian Federal Police. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Lucia in the yellow dress. Then she saw the woman in the photograph. What does she remember, Maria wondered. Does she remember my voice? Does she remember the songs I sang to her about the little moon that lived in the sea? Does she hate me for not finding her sooner? When they landed in Sydney, the air was cool and crisp. They were driven to a quiet police station near the coast. We have Daniel in custody, the Australian officer, Sergeant O'Connor, told Maria. We picked him up this morning at his job. He's a manager at a construction firm. He didn't fight. He just went quiet. And her? Maria asked. Sophia, we'll call her Sophia for now, is in a separate room. She is very confused, Maria. She has lived 18 years believing a very specific story. She believes her father is a hero who saved her after her mother died. She has no idea she was kidnapped. I want to see him first, Maria said. Her voice was as cold as the ocean. I want to look at him. They led her to a room with a one-way mirror. On the other side sat Daniel. He looked broken. He was hunched over, staring at his handcuffed hands. Maria walked into the room. The door clicked shut behind her. Daniel didn't look up at first. I knew this day would come, he whispered. I saw the DNA match on the website. I knew you'd find us. Why? Maria asked. It was the only word she had. Daniel finally looked up. There was no love in his eyes, only a strange, twisted pride. Because you were going to leave me, Maria. I saw the way you looked at me back then. You were unhappy. You were going to take her and leave. I couldn't let you have her. She was mine. So I took her to a place where you could never reach us. You told me she drowned, Maria screamed, slamming her hands on the table. I spent 12 years wishing I was dead. I watched the ocean every day thinking it had eaten my child. You are a monster. She's happy, Daniel yelled back. She's a mother now. She has a good life. I gave her everything. You gave her a lie, Maria said, and today the lie is over. In a small, sunlit room down the hall, a young woman sat at a wooden table. Her name was Sophia. She was wearing a simple denim jacket and a silver necklace with a tiny anchor on it. She was shaking. Every few minutes, she would look at the police officers and ask, "Where is my dad? Why can't I talk to my dad?" Sophia, Sergeant O'Connor said, sitting across from her. We have someone who wants to meet you, someone from your past. I don't have a past, Sophia said, her voice trembling. It was just me and Dad. We moved here from Chile when I was little. My mom died in a crash. Sophia, I want you to look at these, the officer said, sliding a stack of photos across the table. Sophia looked. They were photos of a little girl in a yellow dress. A little girl with a stuffed rabbit named Barnaby. A little girl eating birthday cake with a woman who had dark curls and a bright, loving smile. Sophia's hand went to her mouth. That looks like me, but I don't remember this cake. I don't remember this house. That's because your name isn't Sofia Morales, the officer said gently. Your name is Lucia Alvarez. And that woman in the photo? She didn't die in a car crash. She's been looking for you for 12 years. The door opened. Maria stood in the doorway. She felt like she was standing on the edge of a great cliff. She looked at the woman at the table. She saw the eyes. She saw the dimple. She saw the soul of the little girl who used to dance in yellow sandals. Lucia, Maria whispered. Sophia stood up. She looked at Maria with a mix of terror and a strange, deep recognition. She began to cry, not a loud cry, but a soft, rhythmic sobbing. I remember, Sophia whispered. I remember a song about a moon that lived in a cave under the waves. Maria began to sing, her voice thick with tears. Luna, luna, plateada y fría, cuida mi niña, vida mía. Sophia collapsed into her chair, her head in her hands. He told me you were dead. He told me everyone was gone. Maria walked across the room and did something she had done 10,000 times in her dreams. She put her arms around her daughter. She held her so tight it felt like they were becoming one person again. I'm here, Maria whispered into her daughter's hair. I never stopped looking. I never stopped loving you. You're safe now. But as Maria held her daughter, she noticed something. Sophia wasn't just crying from relief. She was stiff. She was pulling back. Lucia, what is it? Sophia looked at Maria, her eyes wide with a new kind of fear. Mommy, if Daniel stole me, then who is the woman? What woman? Maria asked. The woman who lives with us. He said she was my aunt, but they have a room together. Her name is Elena. Maria froze. Elena? Her sister's name was Elena, but Elena was back in Miami. Elena had been the one who helped her with the DNA site. No, Maria said. Elena is in Florida. Not that Elena, Sophia said, wiping her eyes. Elena Morales. She's the one who gave me my last name. She helped Dad bring me here. She's the one who told me the story about the car crash. Agent Vance stepped into the room, his face grim. Mrs. Alvarez, we just checked Daniel's phone records and his bank accounts from 2011. He didn't act alone. He had an accomplice on the ship, someone who worked in the laundry department, a woman named Elena Morales. Maria felt a new kind of rage. This wasn't just a kidnapping, it was a conspiracy. Daniel had planned this for months. He had a girlfriend waiting for him, a woman who helped him smuggle a 6-year-old girl off a massive cruise ship in a laundry bin. Where is she? Maria demanded. She fled this morning, Vance said. As soon as Daniel was arrested, she vanished. But we have the border alerts out. She won't get far. Sophia looked at Maria, her heart breaking all over again. She raised me. She was the one who tucked me in. And she knew? The whole time she knew you were alive? They both knew, Maria said. They built their happiness on your tears and mine. The news of the cruise ship miracle traveled around the world. It was on every television screen from New York to Tokyo. People couldn't believe that a father could be so cruel, or that a mother could be so brave. The trial took place in a grand courthouse with tall marble pillars. Daniel Alvarez sat in the defendant's chair, looking small and pathetic. Elena Morales had been caught trying to board a flight to New Zealand and sat beside him, her head bowed in shame. Maria was the first to testify. She walked to the stand with her head held high. She didn't look like a ghost anymore. She looked like a queen. For 12 years I was told I was crazy, Maria told the judge and the jury. I was told the ocean took my daughter. But the ocean is honest. The ocean is just water. It was the people I trusted who were the monsters. They didn't just take my daughter, they tried to delete me from the world. Then it was Lucia's turn. She used her real name now, though it felt strange on her tongue. She looked at Daniel. I loved you, she said, her voice echoing in the silent courtroom. I thought you were my hero, but now when I look at you, I don't see a father. I see a thief. You stole my mother. You stole my language. You stole my soul. The jury didn't take long. they found Daniel and Elena guilty on every single count. Kidnapping, identity fraud, child endangerment, psychological abuse. The judge looked at Daniel with pure disgust. Mr. Alvarez, you used a child as a pawn in a game of revenge and selfishness. You have caused a level of pain that most people cannot imagine. You will spend the next 35 years in a cell where you will have plenty of time to remember the daughter who no longer belongs to you. As the guards led Daniel away in chains, he tried to look at Maria one last time. He opened his mouth to speak, but Maria simply turned her back on him. He didn't deserve her words. He didn't even deserve her anger. He was nothing to her now. Winning the court case was the end of the nightmare, but it was only the beginning of the journey. Lucia, or Sophia, as she still sometimes called herself, had a life in Australia. She had a husband named Mark and two beautiful children, a 3-year-old boy named Leo and a tiny baby girl named Maya. Maria stayed in Sydney for a year. She moved into a small house just 3 blocks away from Lucia. They had to learn how to be mother and daughter all over again. It wasn't always easy. Sometimes Lucia would get angry for no reason, overwhelmed by the lies she had lived. Sometimes Maria would wake up in the middle of the night and run to Lucia's house, terrified that she had vanished again. One afternoon, they sat on a park bench overlooking the ocean, the same ocean that had once been their enemy. "Do you hate the water?" Lucia asked, watching Leo play in the sand. "I used to," Maria admitted. "I used to think it was a giant grave. But now I realize the water was just a witness. It saw what happened, and it carried you safely to the shore, even if that shore was far away." "I feel like I have 2 lives," Lucia said. "One life where I am a girl named Sophia who loves her dad, and another life where I am Lucia, the girl who was stolen. I don't know which one is real." "They are both real," Maria said, taking her daughter's hand. "The Sophia life gave you Mark and the babies. The Lucia life gave you me. You don't have to choose. You just have to be whole." Lucia smiled, and for the first time, it was a real smile, one that reached all the way to her eyes. "I think I'm getting there, Mommy." On Lucia's 19th birthday, the first birthday they had celebrated together since she was 5, Maria had a special gift. She had carried a small battered suitcase all the way from Miami. "Open it," Maria said. Lucia opened the lid. Inside, resting on a bed of tissue paper, was a gray stuffed rabbit with 1 floppy ear and a missing button eye. Lucia's breath hitched. She reached out and touched the soft, worn fur. "Barnaby," she whispered. Suddenly, a flood of memories returned. She remembered the smell of her bedroom in Miami. She remembered the way the light hit the floor in the afternoon. She remembered the feeling of being 6 years old and safe. She hugged the rabbit to her chest and wept. "I remembered him. In all those years, I would have dreams about a gray rabbit. Daniel told me I was making it up. He told me it was just a dream." "It wasn't a dream," Maria said. "It was the truth waiting for you." That night, they sat in the kitchen, eating a cake that Maria had baked. It was chocolate with pink frosting, exactly like the one in the photograph Sophia had seen on the genealogy site. They talked about the future. They talked about taking the kids to Florida to meet their great-aunt Elena, the good one. They talked about the names they would give the new memories they were making. The hole in Maria's heart hadn't disappeared, but it was being filled with new things. Love, grandchildren, hope. The story of Maria and Lucia Alvarez ended not with a scream, but with a sunset. Standing on the cliffs of Sydney, watching the orange sun dip below the horizon, Maria realized that her life was no longer split in 2. The 2 halves had been sewn back together, though the scar would always be there. She looked at her daughter, who was laughing as her husband chased their son through the grass. She looked at the blue water, calm and peaceful. Justice had taken 12 years. It had traveled across oceans and through thousands of lies. It had required the bravery of a mother who refused to believe a lie, and the curiosity of a daughter who wanted to find her truth. "Mommy, come look at this shell," Leo shouted, running toward her with his tiny hands outstretched. Maria knelt down and took the shell. It was spiral-shaped and perfect, a tiny miracle of the sea. "It's beautiful, Leo," she said, kissing his forehead. As she stood up, she felt a cool breeze on her face. It felt like a whisper. It felt like the world was finally saying, everything is where it belongs. The most dangerous criminals are indeed the ones we trust, the ones who sit at our dinner tables and hold our hands. But the most powerful force in the world isn't hate, and it isn't lies. It's the stubborn, unbreakable love of a mother. Because some truths wait patiently to resurface, just like the tide. And when they do, they wash everything clean.